Hi, everyone. I'm your host, David Warrick, together with my good friend, John Church, who used to be the Chief Supply Chain Officer at General Mills. John, thanks for joining me this morning. Great to see you. How are you?
Great to see you, David. Largely good. I'm up here in Minnesota. I'm looking out. There's snow outside my windows. We had a respite from that. Thought maybe spring would come, and then we realized it was still February, and March is our snowiest month. So we got pounded last night. But other than that, and a realization that I live in a climate that's colder than 97% of the world's population, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't put me in the top 3%. It's all good.
Yeah, well, I'm up here in Seattle. The first signs of spring this week, so everybody's out in their shorts because that's what we do up in the Pacific Northwest. So it's all good. So hey, again, thanks for joining me. What an interesting week. I'm I'm trying my best to keep up with the news cycle on tariffs, and to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit. It's the only thing that anybody wants to talk to me about, and so it's fitting that you're with me today. So we should have that conversation. So I keep on getting these wonderful little sound bites in terms of, Mexico and Canada. Do we care? How much is it going to impact? And then I went and actually looked at it. And so I found these crazy statistics. Like two-thirds of the aluminium that we use comes from Canada. 90% of the
Yeah.
scrap metal that goes into our smelters actually comes from Mexico. Avocados, berries, peppers, these are all things that we consume in huge amounts, and they're all actually now going to be at risk of a tariff. And then I thought, okay, well, that's all really bad. And then I turned to my favorite tipple of Irish whiskey and realized that, hold on a minute, there's another problem. The 25% tariff, the Distilled Spirits Council, they estimate that that's actually going to greatly impact the industry with a potential of 30,000 job losses. So, John,
Yeah.
I'm kind of spinning right now, going, okay, what are our thoughts? How do supply chains react to this stuff?
It's been interesting because what this has been going on since the election, and they're on again, they're off again, they're off today, they're back on, they're happening at midnight. We get about 3 minutes notice, which I guess is familiar territory for supply chain folks. But this seems like something we ought to be able to get our hands around, strategize, come up with alternate sourcing, et cetera. You can't do that at the snap of a finger. You got to be able to think strategically around how this could go. And I think many of us grew up in a time where we had bilateral trade, we had free trade. We could sort of optimize our network for the best of our company and service and costs and quality. And now I think this is becoming a much bigger deal. Certainly the boards I'm sitting on, we're all asking the questions around, well, what's this going to mean? And I think the interesting thing is a lot of companies don't have any idea what this is going to mean. To your point, it isn't just well, I don't buy much from Canada, so it's not that big of a deal. It's the, well, but do my suppliers source from Mexico? Do my
Right.
suppliers source from China? And so it's not only your primary and your primary suppliers, but it's that secondary and tertiary and the impacts of the spider web of your supply chain, where you might find yourself getting surprised. And my history around this has been, your first supplier says, no, we're fine because we're sourcing entirely from the US. And then they find out from their procurement person, well, yeah, but we source that material from such and such and so and so. And so you have to ask the question, you have to ask it again. And I think that it's going to be interesting times. The other thing is this mercurial nature of how stuff's going. It's pretty tough to sort of commit to a road rather than understanding what your options in your portfolio might be. And then lastly, the thing that I'm finding in a lot of the companies I support is that, in the past, you just say, well, we'll price for this. People understand things cost more.
Yeah.
And, we've elected a leader and this government is having this point of view. But we're not going to be able to price for it this time. Consumers are feeling more strapped than they have historically. And I don't think we understand sort of the secondary impact around demand. I was seeing something today around the largest liquor procurer in Canada is saying, no, it's not going to be a tax. I'm not going to import any more spirits from the United States. And you might say, we pejoratively have said, well, but Canada, it's like the 51st state, or it's not that big of a deal. There's not that many people. And the answer is, well, $1 billion here, $1 billion there kind of adds up to specific industries. Certainly the auto industry has been a very big network, and these aren't things we can change immediately. So it's an
Right.
interesting time for leaders. I mean, you've talked a lot about this. I know you're getting more than your 15 minutes of fame here. You've been on every talk show about this in the United States. What are people asking you about, and sort of is there a theme that strings together for you?
I mean, to your point, the dynamic nature of all of this is what's really hurting people because it's not a definitive. You can't plan around it because you don't know. I mean, yesterday, if you listened to everything yesterday, you would have had the opinion that this is absolutely definitive. It's going to happen. And if you were empowered to make that decision, you would say, I should now move manufacturing from Mexico into the United States, and then I
Right.
can avoid the tariff. If you then woken up this morning and you'd seen that, well, hold on, maybe that's not the case anymore, and we might be relaxing those tariffs. You could have made a decision which could have fundamentally changed the dynamics of your company. And I'm exaggerating in terms of the impact, but these are the decisions that people are trying to make. And this is what I keep getting asked. What's a definitive? What can I do? What should I do? And my answer is, to be honest, John, it's this week. Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Taking any action right now just doesn't seem like a good idea because policies are changing at a rate that it is very difficult to keep up with. And so making a strategic play on something which is uncertain doesn't seem like a good idea. But there has to be a longer term thought process around this. And it is, the overall intent is, okay, what would it look like to return manufacturing to the United States? How would that actually look? And it doesn't even need to necessarily be the United States. It could be a more tariff-friendly country, and it's to reduce our dependence on certain geographies around the world. And that's been a theme for a few years. It's like, okay, what in the first wave of tariffs, whatever that was 6 or 7 years ago, there was this sudden, urgency of, hold on, oh my God, we're so dependent on China in particular. And then COVID hit, and we doubled down on that and said, we should never be this dependent on any one country. And so there's been a theme of, okay, let's think about supply chain diversification to
Yep.
try and actually build some of that resilience. And then here we are again, and we still don't seem to be prepared. We still don't have the right answers, and there's a lot of general head scratching, but that is not helped by the uncertainty of the process. So my week has been, do I or don't I? What should I do? What can I do? And my answers have been, right now, I don't think I would do an awful lot. I
No.
would let this play out and see where it goes to. But that doesn't stop you from having to build a longer term plan around resilience to understand that, what is your longer term strategy and how do you need to think about this dependency?
Yeah, I think that's the key for me is that this isn't going to get solved with I can see what's going on now and I'm going to take decisive action. It's I have to have a portfolio of options, and if the answer was I'm going to pull manufacturing out of China and I'm going to put it somewhere else, that works until somewhere else is someone we feel we're too dependent upon and we raise the tariffs there. And so we're going to have to develop optionality, and optionality will mitigate, but it won't stem any of the impact of not wanting to be trading partners with people, not wanting, and so we're going to have to figure out how to blunt some of the economic factors here and maybe some of the demand factors here. But I don't know that the answer is we're going to know what to do. And what why do I think that? We've had some form of free trade between Mexico and Canada for 30 years.
Right.
We have a trade agreement that currently is in place, signed by the president that's in office right now, that we just decided to put tariffs against. And so, regardless of where you are politically, what do I want to do about that? Because I thought I had an agreement. I would have figured sort of the president comes and stands by where he or she was at, and the answer is not this week, not this
Yeah.
minute of this week.
And
So
that doesn't make it easy, So supply chain practitioners love to solve problems, and this is one of the, this is an ongoing problem. And I'm just trying to get my head around a little bit, the mentality here to say, is this something that we should have been prepared for? Have we been doing enough to actually mitigate against some of this? And I'm torn. There's some of
yeah,
it which I say, you know what? Yeah, okay. We've known that this has been, this is part of the campaign cycle. We've known that tariffs were on the agenda at least for the last probably 12 months. So it shouldn't really come as that big a surprise. Did we believe it was going to actually happen? Well, there's something there. But again, when you and I, talk about supply chain and we talk to the different supply chain leaders around the world, we generally try to influence technology in some way, and we say, look, technology is the big enabler. There's something in technology that should be able to help us. And then I come to this and I go,
Yep.
okay, I am not sure whether my perfect answer of technology will be the big assistant here is actually right. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's how much time have you and I spent talking with folks about AI and sort of upping their technology game? I've said a million times, visibility leads to or awareness leads to awareness, which can lead to optionality and agility. But that's within a constrained set of, I still have manufacturing plants, I still have suppliers. I'm not sure that AI AI, what does it do? It helps us think faster than humans can think. It can deal with
Right,
more complexity than humans can deal with in real time to allow us to make better decisions. It can pull things off of the desks of people such that people can think about new strategic opportunities, and then we can hardwire them through automation. And we can use AI and other forms of technology advancements to automate those things, again, freeing up people to solve problems they haven't solved before. We've solved these problems before. We know, I mean, this is a network problem.
yes,
But the
yes,
question is, we tend to solve them in big chunks. We tend to say, when we know where this is going to go, and as such, we're going to commit. And we're not there anymore. And I'm not sure that technology and being able to see things, it may help me understand the impact. And in a world where I can price, or I can start building models around what's the follow-on impact of that, we might be able to leverage technology for that, but it doesn't solve the problem. And
right.
so I think we can't beat ourselves up for, we should have seen this coming. Seen what coming? Was it on which part of our commodity portfolio, with which countries, at what levels? So
So what you're suggesting is that, and the thought had crossed my mind this morning, by the way, that I put an AI bot on top of Bloomberg News and allow it to start trying to help me predict where this is going to go. And it'd be, I may do that even this afternoon just to see what the results look like, because I am struggling to keep up with the change in the news cycle. But it is one of those sort of interesting points, which is technology and the ability to make those decisions. This could be one of those interesting times. To your point, it's not going to fix the problem, but I'm not sure that the problem is actually fixable. This is policy. It's not a supply chain orchestration maneuver here. So is there opportunity there? That's something that's something that people should consider for sure. Also, the other thing that's just been interesting to me is things like the de minimis rule and the fact that that has also sort of been put to the wayside. I thought about it initially as, okay, that's going to be really interesting for companies like Temu and Shein and those that have built their business models around it. But in a
yep.
conversation last night, I was getting some information that, well, you do realize that this has now impacted freight rates out of China. So suddenly there's a lot more space on cargo planes and a lot more belly freight available. And what has that done? It's actually dropped prices for freight movements out of China. And now people are trying to lock in those rates because they're saying, based on the current uncertainty, the big carriers are going, well, I'd rather have capacity booked than try to negotiate. And so it's caused another shift in terms of the supply chain sourcing element, in terms of the prices are now dropping rapidly. People are very concerned about what the next knock-on effect of tariffs will be. And there's a direct impact to the supply chain straight away. So it's kind of interesting for me, John, when I see that, even there's knock-on effects below the ones that are
Yeah.
obvious that we haven't even started to contemplate yet.
I think that's the really interesting thing, and it is the secondary and tertiary and quaternary impacts of that. Will the transportation rates offset enough of the tariff that you're like, well, maybe I need to think about sourcing differently? Does that, and can I lock those in? And we become day traders in our sourcing strategies. That probably isn't the right way for us to run a supply chain, but it speaks to, this is just another ongoing part of our agenda as supply chain leaders. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with this disruption, and those will be new muscles for some folks that grew up with, as you and I did, in a bilateral, global, multilateral trade where free trade was more the likelihood than not.
John, interesting times. Really appreciate you joining me here
Great to
this
see you,
morning.
David.
And very, very best wishes with your weather problems there
Thank you.
over on the East Coast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you like the content, please like us and subscribe to us. If you don't like what we're saying, by all means, let us know, and we'll have another conversation on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.